Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining Holistic Wisdom, Conscious Collective Awakening series. Every week I've been bringing to you very, very interesting people, speakers, teachers from around the world. And today I'm so excited to introduce to you an amazing person who is a wealth of knowledge. And she's also a friend of mine who lives in UK. And her name is Darya Haitoglou. So Darya is a graduate of Cambridge University. She's a leading psychologist and award-winning relationship expert. Darya's mission is to help create love-rich, blame-free families, individuals, and also organizations. She is an expert in systemic family and organizational dynamics, and also the director of Satir Institute in the UK, and a co-founder of Enrich Global, working for the past 10 years with individuals, groups, and organizations, leading workshops and retreats, as well as online forums. Darya is helping people find a deeper meaning and connections in their personal and professional lives. So, wow, there's a lot of things you do. And I actually had a pleasure and honor to be part of your events. Twice I went to Greece, last year Santorini, and the year before Mykonos. And I thought it was an amazing experience. And the way that you teach was just, to me, very profound. I think you're an amazing teacher, and you're absolutely a master of your craft, which I rarely say that about people, but it's the truth. So I'd love for you now to join, introduce yourself, and let's begin this conversation for the world to meet you, at least my followers to meet you and know what you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. It's a pleasure and honor for me to be here, and I think it's a wonderful effort to gather people around this virtual table and share the discussions and matters that are deeply personal, but also so transformational. And I thank you for this opportunity, and I'm really looking forward to our discussion today.
Yeah, so today I forgot to mention that our topic is there's so many topics we can cover, but the one that you chose to discuss today will be relationships during lockdown. I would say this is probably the most important topic because from what I am understanding, it's not only relationships with others, but it's relationship with yourself, because you're literally forced to face yourself, which it's so much easier in the past, I would say, to avoid ourselves by being busy, by going places. And now we're literally having to face ourselves and how that translates into the relationships with people around us in our lives. So please share from your experience, your expertise of working through people, guiding people over the last 2 months during the lockdown period, and what you've been seeing.
It's a fascinating topic, and I think now like never, personally, I've never spent so much time with my children. I've never spent so much time with my husband since the beginning of our relationship, literally in the same space. We've always traveled. We've always been somewhere else, kind of catching up with each other a little bit. But here we live and we breathe the air and the energy of this union of the family and the family dynamics. And the topic that I'm very passionate about is systemic family dynamic. Is where do we come from? What system do we belong to? And the patterns that govern us. Sometimes we say, well, I can change my behavior like so quickly. I can change my thoughts. I can change the way how I feel. And in these particular situations, when we face our children and reflection of us, and we face our partners, a little reflection of our parent, and we face ourselves as reflection of all the decisions and historical events that happened before us, for us to be able to just face, it's already a gift. And I think it's really hard. It's one of the hardest times. We've never done that collectively, ever, in the history of humanity. Some countries have done it, like the country where we come from, under Soviet, or under occupations, under, traumatic events. Some cultures have gone through this, but as a planetary collective, never. So for me, this is an opportunity to share, how can we take this as a gateway, as an opening, a window into something that is very important, probably the most important, is to understand how we are wired and what can we do to disentangle some of the unhelpful coping mechanisms, strategies that we use to combat with stress. I mean, if everything goes well and some families are thriving and relationships are repairing, which is fantastic, and I would love to share, some of the strategies how to continue and how to help these families share their nuggets that they're so valuable currently. But many families, I would say the majority of families and the clients I work with, they experience intense stress, intense anxieties and depression, and a lot of coping mechanisms come to the surface, and we need some help. I mean, even us health practitioners, I deal with some heavy cases, and I also need to flush it out, to cleanse, to clear. How do we do that? I connect with you and I use your products as well, like, how you teach people to clear the spiritual and mental and emotional bodies. But, there's so many from the psychology of the system that we can also help ourselves with. And we can dive into any of the angles that I've shared, but, just to sort of set the scene, this is what I'm really passionate about. And I'm happy to start this conversation.
Yes, there's so many places to begin. So let's say, as an example, I would say majority of people, and perhaps you also see this, and you said, are completely stressed out, and they feel like they have no place to go to relieve the stress, like of facing themselves, being with their children. Yes, it's a gift, but a lot of parents I know at the moment who have young children are dealing with an incredible amount of stress, to having to not only have a full-time job working from home, but also parenting and being a teacher to their children, as I'm sure you know that. So that's a tremendous amount of stress, which also translates into the relationship stress at home for those that do have their partners at home. So what would be an advice that you can give, which I'm sure it will translate across so many cultures right now, because every single family that has young children that is having to deal with this. So what would be some of the ways that you can give advice for somebody who is in this situation right now, who's stressed out?
Yes. Well, I love Gandhi's phrase when he said, if you want to change the world, or if you want to change the dynamic of your children or the dynamic of somebody else, change yourself, start with yourself. And looking at yourself in the mirror and noticing what kind of reactions you're having, and then having a discussion, an open discussion with your partner on the foundation. What are the principles, what are the rules, what are the values, what are the traditions that we want to establish. So we call it, with my partner Alex, who's Greek and I'm Russian, I come from Siberia, as you know, and these are very different cultures, and we live in the third culture in the UK. And actually our children, two boys, 6 and 9 years old, who are homeschooled by me currently, and then the full working load is in the evening and the afternoon. As you can imagine, we are overstressed too. Now what we do is, and by the way, our children think that they're Swiss because they were born in Switzerland, so we have complications of languages. For example, I only speak Russian to our children. My husband Alex speaks only Greek to our children, and in between them they started speaking English because they moved to the English school, which is German actually, a school, Waldorf-Steiner system. So you can imagine, we're sort of at the beginning we were floating, and the rules had been totally overlooked. The discipline was out of the window, and the emotions were very high. So when we gathered, first of all, me and Alex, we connected, and I said, okay, what are our principles? So we wrote them down, the household principles. We're going to stick to the routine from Monday to Friday. And we're gonna make sure that there is a difference between the working days and then the weekends, because it's such a tempting environment to just forget about that and sort of float. And with children, we cannot do that, because they need boundaries and discipline to feel safe. So we explained to them afterwards all the rules. So we wake up on time, like if we were to go to school at 7 o'clock in the morning. They would do their routine, they would do the exercises, they would do their music class on their own, and they would eat. And by 9 o'clock, they should be ready to start the school kind of day, where the morning we decided that Alex, my partner, will look after them. He will do the physical exercises. He's much better suited for that with boys, and I would pick up from 9 o'clock until 3 o'clock or 5 o'clock, where we will do the homeschooling. At the same time, I would make some food. Obviously we cannot have any other people joining us to help, so we had to teach them how to clean the toilets. We had to teach them how to do the basic things. Even there are really good things that now children will learn, because they will see how they're done, how to wash their clothes and how to make sure that they hoover the room. So this has actually been a wonderful opportunity for them to see us in action and to pass on that calm but assertive way of parenting, where we set the boundaries first. We make sure we are clear. We're not arguing between us. Behind the doors, we align, and then we show one aligned strategy to children. And then in the evening, Alex takes over, because it's impossible to do double, triple shifts of the day with children. It's like a full-time job. And then I go to my work and clients, and he takes over to feed them and put them to bed and read them a story, and make sure that they do the routine and they sleep on time. And the weekend we connect as a family, and that is very important, because when children see parents being constantly busy doing something else all the time, and they don't have that opportunity to connect in a quality of time, then they start provoking negatively the reactions of parents. And that's when the escalation happens, when the voices get raised, and then some family members use emotional violence or mental violence, sometimes even physical violence. And that's what we want to avoid, because these are the nurturing opportunities for families to express. And the calmer we are as parents, the calmer children will be. We don't discuss the horror of possibility of of COVID. We just say, look, this is how it is. We're gonna go through this. This is temporary. We're gonna be fine. And we explain in facts that are digestible by them. So that's kind of in brief. That's the framework. And then, of course, there is a piece of how do we make sure that we are still romantic partners between me and my husband, or if people live in the same gender union still. There's a big piece of romantic connection. Now that is a bit trickier, because under stress, what happens, our amygdala, it's a part of the brain in the middle of our head, which is like a guard for fear and for danger. It's currently on like semi and chronic hijack state. So it is activated. So our sympathetic nervous system is elevated, and we are constantly on alert. What's happening? So it's very hard to relax. And romantic and sexual sensual relationship is based on the platform of security, feeling safe and relaxed, and sort of I can let go for the parasympathetic nervous system to be able to function. So currently it's very hard to do, but we've got a couple of tricks that help us. And we've actually created a little model that I'm happy to share. It's called chat. So we say to Alex, let's have a chat. That's kind of a code word for our adult kind of chat. Now, the letter C stands for connect positively. So we go and we know each other's love language. So I love touch. So Alex would touch me, hug me, and I know that his love language is more service, acts of service. So I would make things for him. I don't know, make a nice dinner and clean his place where he works, and he loves that. So connect positively, say something nice. You're lovely. I appreciate you so much, and you work so hard for our family. And I know how tired you are, and you're just wonderful. Whatever, you look hot. That doesn't matter what. As soon as that is something that your partner appreciates, then H in the word chat stands for hold negative. And in a time of stress, it's like when you go to a shower and wash yourself daily or by daily. Emotional shower is very important, and we need to release, I'm sorry to say this, emotional poo at some point, because it builds up, and with children it can come out, and it's not good. The best thing for it to do is in this type of bonded, secure connections with our partners, when they can hold our negative outburst. And I asked Alex, I said, look, can we do our holding container? Can I just tell you all the negative things that's happening, and you just say nothing, literally nothing? Just say, like, think yes, 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 yes. And when we do it, it works beautifully. It's like a therapy, but on a deeper level, for the couple to heal. You see, it's not possible to avoid conflict. It's not possible to avoid confrontation, but it's important to learn how to repair it. And repair, we have this secure bond with our partner where they can actually hold us. Especially for women, this is important. Then A in the word chat stands for appreciate. So use as many appreciations after the negatives, like, wow, it was so good for me, I really thank you for doing this. And I really appreciate the warmth we have, appreciate the water, clean water we can drink, appreciate that we have our job, or appreciate that we have our children. Something that you appreciate and feel grateful for, because our research says that the more we appreciate and the more gratitude we express, the better it is for our relationship long term. We cannot do harm with appreciations and gratitude. This only can heal. And then T in the word chat stands for touch. Touch is so important, and it's important for our trust as well, because when we touch and when we do self-touch, if you're alone and you don't have a partner, what happens is we have a wired mechanism to release the hormone called oxytocin. And literally, if you just soothe yourself by stroking, after literally a few minutes, you will notice that your body starts relaxing, and your body starts feeling like, oh, I can trust that person more. Miraculously. Where does that come from? And it's only coming from our natural ability, because this is where, when we were children, our mother would stroke us. And if it's a healthy attachment, if it was not healthy, and some people have a reaction to grabbing, so don't grab, just like stroke nicely. And then you can also stroke your face. There's a famous technique called behavening, when we stroke our face and we also stroke our palms, just gently stroking. Literally, the touch is healing on many, many levels, and our biological, hormonal, and the level of our physiology reacts to this powerful soothing mechanism. So imagine it's not just myself doing it to me, but my partner doing this to me. And it increases multifold if your love language is kinesthetic, is touch. Like for me, there's nothing like touch for me that soothes me. So this is a chat, and when we do it, it can take 10 minutes, but it works 100%. So if you could implement that in your family, in your partnership, with your children, this gonna change your dynamic, your air. And for the cognitive mind, for your body, for your emotional release, emotional shower, this is something that I can definitely share as a valid tool.
Wow, I love all of them. I would say it's so helpful. And it's something that I never thought about, especially holding the space and allowing your partner to just say whatever. I think most of us take it for granted, because I would say majority of people either hold it in or have these anger outbursts. I'm the person that tends to just hold things in. and just kind of keep it inside, right? So this made me think, I mean, this is such a wonderful technique. I think I will even incorporate it. And
But
yeah.
you see, most people either do anger, so outbursts, or they hold. So there are two primary coping mechanisms, coping stances. We either blame or we withdraw. You know, those stances that we do with our Virginia Satir coping stances. But in the research, the Gottman Institute research, what we know is that these are two sort of kisses of death, you know, for the emotional stability, emotional health of the relationship. And what happens when we build up, in a way, we're trying to protect the relationship. We don't want to share the negative because we're afraid that it will hurt the person. And for good reasons, it does. It can actually trigger a lot. That's why when we call a chat, we always start with the positive. We never give the negative first front row, because it can spoil big time. We're so sensitive currently to all the criticism and demands and expectations. So the more positive connection we could do it up front, and then it's kind of a sandwich. So you start with positive and do the negative, and you finalize it with positive affirmation, you know, the appreciations and the touch, which is, you know, just a double positive. So when we hold and bottle up, eventually it will burst. And if it bursts into, you know, I told you so, or, you know, it bursts into an inflammation in the body. And you know that a lot of people currently have health issues because they're bursting out from the inside. And when they are just reactively sharing anger, it's very dysfunctional in a way, because it can provoke this negative spiral, and children will react, the partner will react. No one wants to be accused, no one wants to be sort of caught in that anger state. It's only when we align and agree, when we say, okay, could we have a chat, could you hold me? And this is the magic, because if I just go to Alex and tell him everything that you know, like all the negative stuff, he will also blow up. The same for me. We are the edge, you know, currently at the edge of our boundaries. Like, we need to hold them. And that's why it's a very delicate thing when we can ask, you know, are you resourceful enough to hold what's happening for me, my fears, my insecurities, my anger? Can you hold me? If the partner says yes, then give them, you know, timeline, let's say 5 minutes, and just go for it. And then, you know, we did it up to 1 hour. Imagine that. And I thought he would never be able to hold 1 hour of criticism, you know, venting. And I generally don't like that, but, you know, I reached my point. And you know what happened? After 1 hour, I said, are you okay? He said, yeah, if it works for you, it works for me, because I want to make sure you're happy. I'm like, wow, I feel actually better. He said nothing in return, but I felt so good that I felt he listened to me. He knows my concerns. And then I said, you know what? Let's go have a cup of tea now.
Yeah, because you feel like you're being heard and not judged. It's so powerful, you just said. And what I loved, because for me, I'm also dealing with, my kids are a lot older. So I totally understand parents like you right now who have small children, who have to homeschool. My kids are at a completely different phase. They're homeschooling and they're older. So teenagers and out of the house kind of kids. But I love what you said. It's, to me, setting boundaries and rules for children is crucial, whether we're dealing with lockdown or not. And especially now, it's sort of like setting up your own little corporation at home, because it's a company. And when the root of the company is grounded and secure, it's much easier to do other things. But you have to set the rules, and it takes two parents who can be on the same page to implement the rules. But then I know there's another issue where parents do not agree and are having massive disagreements on how to raise children, what kind of rules to abide by. Some people don't like rules. So like, if one partner I know might love rules and think it's great, which usually for moms, that's a natural thing to do, I know some of the dads who cannot stand the rules and they don't want to play by the rules. So it takes a toll also on a female partner. So what would you recommend for those partners that cannot find a middle ground of having that? Like how do you deal with your partner?
Such a good question. And I was also thinking, some of the recommendations for single parents, which is even more difficult. So for the partners who do not see eye to eye, and that was me actually at the beginning of my relationship with Alex, we had completely different ideas about parenting. What he thought was good, I just appalled. I felt like, oh no, we cannot do that. And it took some time for us to establish a common ground. I mean, the rules for us were never to fight in front of children, because once we do that, we realize the consequences were worse for them and worse for us. They ricocheted back. They just play back all the negative stuff. And children feel unsafe when they see their parents fighting. So we always go back to our room and we first take a break. So our blood level pressure goes down so we can actually talk, because in the heat of a moment, it's impossible to connect. We need to make a preventative strategy. And that's why relationships are strategic. They're strategic for our health. They're strategic for our longevity. They're strategic for our happiness and the vitality of our family. So we need to make the strategic choices like we do in business, like we do in great talents like athletes, like Olympic athletes. They never go to Olympic run or Olympic without training and strategies. They have coaches who help them. So we always discuss, and occasionally we have different points where I'm like, oh, I'm not sure I'm aligned to that. I don't agree with that. And that's okay. We can say, okay, a couple of minutes, we go and we discuss, and we always look for the common ground, what's better for the greater good, for the system. And I sometimes compromise my own personal beliefs, because the system where I come from, my parents, are not always best for us. So I need to take responsibility and admit, okay, maybe the way how I know from my parents is not always the best. And I can adjust to my partner's beliefs that, at the start it felt like really uncomfortable, but then he's coming from a different system and we need to negotiate, we need to find a compromise. The same for him. He at the beginning was not very clear on what type of rules we should establish, because he comes from a family of split parents. They divorced. His level of emotional debating or conflict, he could have a conflict and it was normal for him. For me, it was so scary to have a conflict, because I come from a family that conflict was sort of subdued to the point of passive aggressiveness, and that was maximum that what was happening. And I had to learn how to fight with him, to show my emotional investment into a topic so that he can understand my point of view. It was so hard. And then when he didn't care about something, I had to find out what he cares about, what he wants to establish for children, and find a strategy that is common. If there's no common strategy, it is going to be super hard. And you need to do more repair afterwards. And actually, you need to do 5 times more positive repair for each negative if you want to stay long-term together. Because what we know from the research, that if there's conflicts and demands, expectations, judgments exacerbate, this will lead to separation. Especially contempt is one of the deadliest emotions for the relationship, when we sort of like make deadly jokes and feel contempt for our partner. This is felt by children. This is felt by everybody, and it's a kiss of death.
One thing I want to say, and I think this is a very important point you touched on, and I know this is part of your work, but most people maybe missed it and didn't realize it. A lot of times, or I would say all of the time, when we come together in a relationship, we bring our belief systems from our parents, grandparents, whatever's been programmed into us. And it's not until you become conscious of your own patterns that you realize, wow, I'm speaking like my mom or my dad, or I'm repeating exactly the same almost like a parrot, words and behaviors, and you recognize it actually doesn't belong to you. This is not you. And I think this is the biggest gift. And one of the things that you do in your work is you make people aware that the rules and the systems that are created in their relationships don't have to come from the past, because sometimes the past is broken and it has not worked. And perhaps it's really about you understanding yourself to create something much bigger and greater in the new kind of system with your new partner, that you're having your own family. And it can be difficult. I know for me as well, I've had challenges where, for example, my parents weren't seeing eye to eye into my belief systems, but I knew that for me, I didn't want to have the same belief systems because they weren't working for me. So if you want to touch on that, because I feel this is a very important topic, and I feel that every person has to recognize that. I recognize the parent or grandparent within themselves and say, do I really want to believe that? And continue repeating that.
Yeah. Well, this is one of my most favorite topics, because in the work, in the retreats and workshops that we've done, and also my colleagues in systemic constellations work and family reconstruction work, Virginia Satir, Bert Hellinger, the IFS, the internal family systems, and a little bit of NLP, what we've seen is that systemically we repeat the strategies that our parents had, patterns of relating. And if we're not careful, we will relive the same story. Or we could do the opposite. That's also quite unconscious. We would say, no, I'm never going to be like my mother. I'm never going to find a partner like my father. And, we can go as long as it gets, but, you'll be surprised. And probably, some of the traits that in many couples, my first husband was almost, a little bit like replica of my father. And I didn't know, once I figured that out, it's like, wow, this is powerful. How did that happen? Because I was pretty sure that I'm going to find a completely different person. And, he was like my dad. So it took me, 12, 15 years to figure out a method that could help people to almost rewire something in their systemic brain that would allow for a new possibility to create a new relationship, a new you that would shape a different behavior, a different choice, a different feeling, based on consciousness, based on awareness, and based on appreciation of all the loyalty that we hold towards our past system, our bigger systemic clan, but also be independent and become a little bit more like an agent of change and heal some of the generational patterns. And it's possible because all our patterns are, in a way, it's like a neurological connections, and they're also energetic connections. So by looking into those consciously, we can repattern them and we can connect better with our partner, because they come from a completely different system. And it's so hard to find that, sweet spot for a long-term, passionate, loving relationship. And I think we all deserve to have a loving, passionate relationship, to have fantastic abundance level, children that are great, health that is vitality and well-being. But, understanding the rules, understanding what we need to do and doing them, they're two completely different things. And until the time when I started doing this, and I remember when I went to this family reconstruction workshop myself with my partner and our newborn Dimitri, and my sister, actually, she was our nanny at that time. And we did the family reconstruction. My life changed completely. Relationship with my parents, relationship with my sister, relationship with Alex. And, I cannot explain. It's very experiential. It's very, you've experienced that. So I'd love to know, how you would explain what it is. But it's a multidimensional transformation where, not only you become aware of the patterns that governed you until that moment, but also you can slightly make a shift in your decisions towards better. And that is maybe it feels like a small step forward, but long term, it's a huge trajectory to a more positive outcome for the future generations, for your children, for your grandchildren. So this work, there's a lot been researched currently, how it works, the morphogenetic fields, and the how do we feel this systemic field? What is systemic field? Is it magnetic field, energetic field? We actually don't know yet fully as a scientific community, but we know it works. And the way it works is that people collectively, it's almost like we represent some of the roles, some of the parts, some of our family members, and we give feedback just from our senses. I feel hot, I feel a bit colder, I'm attracted to this part, I feel I have that kind of inclination, or I feel heavy. With this type of nuance feedback, we can direct and support the person's inquiry and insights into their systemic field. And that has some profound effect on their behavior, on their systemic choices moving forward. And some of, case studies we had, they're just so beautiful, when people couldn't get a baby and they get pregnant after the workshop, or they had a chronic disease and they recover. And it's not just one or two, there are hundreds and thousands. If combined with my colleagues, this work generates fantastic results, and it's a deep work. And I think if we notice and become aware of some of the patterns that happen in our life, this is a perfect time to face them, to work with them. And I encourage you to find a facilitator, a systemic practitioner, family systemic therapist, family constellations practitioner, to do this work. Even through Zoom, we started doing it from groups of 12 till 60, and it works. People feel shifts, and people have the body feedback, which we thought was impossible before. So thanks to the technology, it's now widely available.
It's incredible. For me, you said what would be the best way to describe it. The one thing that comes to mind, and I would say this is to me why it's so powerful. When we come into this incarnation of what we call life in this dimension, we come with preset things to work out in our life. So of course, being incarnated with a certain family members, inheriting the belief systems and all these other things. So what I think happens, and I believe this now, is when we take on all these belief systems from everybody else, we literally override our own free will. We actually have no free will. But as soon as, based on your work, and I've seen this, as soon as you become aware of this from a bigger perspective, you're able to observe the systems that have not been working, or perhaps working, but have been so dysfunctional for so many generations. And you're able to see it from a bird's eye perspective. You're no longer attached to it. And that gives you the key and the power to make your own choice. And that is your free will. And I think that this work allows people to have the ability to have the free will, because without having that bigger awareness, none of us have free will. People think we do, but we actually don't. So you have to tap into the morphogenetic field, right? The systemic field, to look at it from a much bigger perspective, to allow yourself to free yourself to be you. So that's how I would describe what you do, in a way, in a very short way.
Accurate.
And I would encourage people, for those that are seeking practitioners like you, because you work with people from around the world, and thank God that we have Zoom and other technologies that this could be done through, that this is something that if they're stuck and they want to change something in their life, this is definitely, Darya is definitely a person that can help you recognize that, either one-on-one, but I think in a group setting, it's much better, because what happens in a group setting, and of course I observed this, is you have people that can embody you, and different members, whether it's your family members or whatever system you want to work through. So you're able to observe your patterns and generational patterns, and recognize and also feel, because our body has this incredible way of giving us information. So it's a really clear antenna that is guiding us, and it's really about tuning in and honoring and trusting our feelings. But then you have this whole group of people that is there supporting you and doing this system, working for you, right? Working through the system to help you understand everything from a much bigger perspective, to give you the ability and the freedom to choose, which is very powerful.
Yes.
So Darya, do you want to say how people can find you? So list your website. I know that you're also teaching online classes. So please list your website and then how people can find you and connect with you. I think this is important.
Well, if you can spell my surname, then my website is daryahaitoglou.com. So it's DARYAHAITOGLOU.com. And there's a lot of information there. Now we have groups online that I don't know if it's possible to share a link to Eventbrite. We have a public group that one can join. There are a lot of groups that are closed, but once you experience and figure out what kind of issue you would like to deal with, then we can help find the right group for you. And we have a retreat that we were actually supposed to be doing this week in Crete. Now it's going to be next year from 15th of May for obvious reasons. And it is on enrich.global, so www.enrich.global, and there's more information there. And we do have online programs, but they're more for the cognitive enrich your relationships and emotional kaleidoscope, how to transfer negative emotions into positive ones. But systemic work is something that we can discuss. If you're interested, just send me an email. info@daryahaitoglou.com.
Okay, wonderful. So what we'll do is, because I'm not sure if this transmission was live on Facebook, we'll share the link through YouTube on my Facebook page, and then underneath you can also just put the links once this video is ready. I'm so grateful to have you join and to share the beautiful work that you do. I absolutely love it, and you are a master at it. And I think so many people can benefit from your work. So thank you so much for joining. And for those of you that have any questions, please post below the video link once it goes live. And Darya, I'm sure, will be happy to answer any of the questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. Thank you. And thank you for listening, everybody. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, thank you.